The diplomatic vessel cut through the darkness of space like a silver blade. Inside its luxurious corridors, Tae Yang stood at his post, eyes scanning every shadow and corner. He had been a soldier once, back on Earth. Now he was just a security contractor, hired to protect important people who traveled between worlds. It was steady work, and it paid well enough to send money back home to his sister. The Viridians who owned this ship were tall, elegant beings with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. They moved with grace and spoke in measured tones, always thinking before acting. Everything about them was calculated, logical, and precise. They had technology that seemed like magic to most humans. Their weapons could disintegrate matter. Their ships could fold space. Their computers could predict the future based on millions of calculations per second. To the Viridians, humans were interesting but primitive. They hired human security because it was cheap, not because they thought humans were particularly good at the job. Most Viridians believed their own guards, enhanced with cybernetic implants and neural networks, were far superior. Tae Yang knew this. He had heard the whispers, seen the condescending looks. But he did his job anyway, standing watch over Princess Hana as she prepared for a diplomatic meeting on a distant world. Princess Hana was young by Viridian standards, barely into her second century. She had kind eyes and a curiosity about other species that her people found unusual. She had spoken to Tae Yang a few times, asking questions about Earth and human customs. He answered politely but kept his distance. She was royalty. He was hired help. That was the natural order of things. The attack came without warning. One moment, the ship hummed peacefully through neutral space. The next, every light flickered and died. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing the corridors in red. Alarms screamed. Tae Yang's combat instincts roared to life. He grabbed his rifle and moved toward the royal chambers where Princess Hana was resting. Around him, Viridian guards collapsed. Their cybernetic enhancements sparked and smoked, their neural implants overloaded. The electromagnetic pulse that had struck the ship was designed specifically to target their technology. Within seconds, the most advanced security force in the galaxy was reduced to helpless bodies twitching on the floor. But Tae Yang kept moving. He had no implants, no enhancements, just flesh, blood, and bone. In this moment, his primitive biology was his greatest advantage. He reached the royal chambers just as the door exploded inward. 3 figures in black armor poured through the smoke, weapons raised. Kryvex pirates, Tae Yang realized. Assassins for hire. They moved with deadly purpose toward Princess Hana, who stood frozen in shock. Tae Yang did not think. He simply acted. He threw himself between the princess and the incoming fire. White-hot plasma bolts slammed into his armor and burned through to his flesh. Pain exploded across his chest and shoulder. He felt his skin blister and char. But he stayed on his feet, raising his rifle with his good arm and firing back. The first assassin went down with a bullet through the faceplate. Viridian weapons were elegant and powerful, but human weapons were simple and reliable. They worked even after an EMP blast. The second assassin dove for cover, surprised by the resistance. The third tried to flank, but Tae Yang was already moving. He grabbed a piece of the shattered door and hurled it like a shield. It struck the flanking assassin hard enough to knock him down. Tae Yang followed up with 3 quick shots. The assassin stopped moving. Pain clouded his vision. His armor smoked. Blood ran down his side, but he kept fighting. The last assassin fired wildly, trying to get a clear shot at the princess. Tae Yang threw himself forward again, tackling the armored figure. They crashed to the ground together. The assassin was stronger, enhanced with illegal augmentations. He threw Tae Yang off and raised his weapon. Tae Yang saw death coming and smiled grimly. At least he had bought enough time. Then the assassin's head snapped back. A plasma bolt from a Viridian weapon had struck true. Backup had arrived. Royal guards with manual weapons, not connected to any network, stormed the room. The battle was over in seconds. Tae-Yang tried to stand, but his legs would not obey. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was rushing in to take its place. He had been hit 4 times, maybe 5. He could not remember. His vision narrowed to a tunnel. He felt small hands on his face. Princess Hana knelt beside him, her glowing eyes wide with something he had never seen in a Viridian before. Tears. She was crying. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you do that?" Tae-Yang tried to answer, but his mouth would not form words. Why had he done it? It was his job. No, that was not quite right. He could have taken cover. He could have fought from a safe position. But when he saw those weapons pointed at her, he had not thought about his job or his duty. He had just moved. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was something deeper. Humans protected those who could not protect themselves. It was written into their bones, carved into their nature by millions of years of evolution. Logic had nothing to do with it. The world was fading now. Voices echoed around him. Medical teams rushed in with equipment. He felt himself being lifted. Through the haze, he saw another figure enter the room, tall, regal, with a crown of silver light floating above her head. Queen Aira, the Empress herself. She looked at him, and for just a moment her perfect Viridian composure cracked. She saw the burns on his body, the blood pooling beneath him, the way he had positioned himself even in collapse to shield her daughter. She knelt beside him, something no Viridian ruler had done for a human in recorded history. "He threw his life away for her," someone said. "No," the queen replied softly, her hand touching his burned shoulder with surprising gentleness. "He gave his life for her. There is a difference. Remember his face. Remember his name. Tae-Yang of Earth. He will be honored." Then darkness took him, and Tae-Yang knew nothing more. Above him, Princess Hana continued to cry, her tears falling on his burned armor. Queen Aira watched in silence, her mind already working through the implications. A human had done what her most advanced guards could not. A primitive being had shown loyalty beyond logic, courage beyond calculation. She had witnessed something her people had forgotten long ago. She had witnessed sacrifice. Tae-Yang woke to softness and light. For a moment he thought he was dead. Heaven, perhaps, or whatever came after. Then the pain hit him, and he knew he was very much alive. Dead people did not hurt this much. He opened his eyes slowly. The room around him was unlike anything he had ever seen. Walls that glowed with gentle blue light. Equipment that hummed with quiet efficiency. The bed beneath him felt like floating on clouds. Through a massive window, he could see a city of crystal towers stretching toward a purple sky. He was on the Viridian homeworld. A soft chime sounded, and a door opened. A medical attendant entered, saw that he was awake, and immediately bowed to him. That was wrong. Viridians did not bow to humans. "You honor us with your recovery," the attendant said in careful, accented English. "I will inform Her Majesty immediately." Before Tae-Yang could ask what that meant, the attendant was gone. He tried to sit up and gasped. His chest was bandaged, but the skin beneath felt new and tender. He touched his shoulder where the worst burn had been. Smooth skin, no scars. Viridian medical technology was even better than the rumors suggested. The door opened again, and this time Princess Hana rushed in. She stopped just inside the doorway, as if afraid to come closer. She looked different here, dressed in formal robes of silver and blue, her hair arranged in an elaborate style. But her eyes held the same expression he remembered from the attack. Concern, worry, something almost like fear. "You are awake," she said softly. "I came every day. I wanted to be here when you opened your eyes." "Every day?" Tae-Yang's voice came out rough. "How long was I unconscious?" 12 days. The doctors said your injuries were severe. They had to learn human biology to heal you properly. My mother brought specialists from Earth to help." She stepped closer, her hands clasped together. "I need to thank you. You saved my life." "Just doing my job, Your Highness." "No." She shook her head firmly. "Your job was to stand guard. You threw yourself in front of plasma fire. You nearly died. That is not just a job. My people do not understand this. We calculate risk. We value self-preservation above all else. But you did not calculate. You just acted." Tai Yang did not know what to say. She was right. He had not thought about it. He had just moved. Over the next few days, he learned the truth of his situation. In Viridian culture, when someone saved a member of the royal family, they became bond sworn. It was an ancient law, rarely invoked in modern times. It meant he was bound to the royal house, and they were bound to him. His life was theirs to protect, just as he had protected Hana. The concept confused him. Back home, he would have been given a medal and a bonus, then sent on his way. Here, he was being treated like a hero. Servants brought him the finest food. Doctors checked on him every hour. Even the guards who stood outside his room treated him with respect. When he was strong enough to walk, Princess Hana came to escort him personally. She brought him through the palace, pointing out ancient artwork and explaining her people's history. She seemed eager to share, as if making up for lost time. "You must understand," she said as they walked through a garden filled with plants that glowed in the dim light. "We Viridians have not known war for 3,000 years. We solved conflicts with logic and negotiation. We built our society on reason, but we lost something in the process. When I saw you bleeding on the floor, protecting me without any logical reason to do so, I realized what we lost. We lost heart." Before Tai Yang could respond, they reached a grand chamber. Two massive doors opened, and he found himself in a throne room. At the far end, seated on a chair of living crystal, was Queen Ira. She was even more impressive in person than she had been in his brief, fading glimpse. Tall and elegant, with silver hair that flowed like water and eyes that seemed to see through everything. She wore a crown of light that shifted colors as she moved. When she stood, everyone in the room bowed, everyone except Tai Yang, who was too stunned to move. "Approach!" the queen said, her voice carrying easily across the vast space. Tai Yang walked forward, his legs still weak from his recovery. He stopped at a respectful distance and bowed, as much as his healing body would allow. "Tai Yang of Earth," Queen Ira said, studying him with those piercing eyes. "You have become something of a mystery to my people. We have analyzed the security footage from the attack countless times. We have run simulations. By every logical measure, you should have taken cover and fought from a defensive position. Instead, you used your body as a shield. Why?" Tai Yang thought about lying, about giving some noble answer. But something in her gaze demanded honesty. "I do not know, Your Majesty. I just saw her in danger and I moved. There was no time to think." "No time to think," she repeated, as if tasting the words. "My advisors say this is a flaw in human psychology. Acting without calculation leads to mistakes. But in this case, acting without calculation saved my daughter's life." She descended from her throne, walking toward him. "I am told that humans have an instinct to protect, that you will sacrifice yourselves for others, even strangers, even when logic says you should save yourselves." "Some of us, yes." "Fascinating." She stopped in front of him. Despite his height, she was taller. "I have a proposition for you, Tai Yang of Earth. Become my daughter's permanent guardian, not as a contractor, not as an employee, as bond sworn. As family." The word hit him like a physical blow. Family. "I am just a soldier, Your Majesty. I am not qualified to be part of a royal house." You are qualified by the only measure that matters. You were willing to die for her. In our empire, such loyalty is beyond price. She placed a hand on his shoulder over the place where the worst burn had been. You threw your life away for my daughter without hesitation. In our empire, such devotion will be honored, and you will be protected as fiercely as you protected her. Do you accept? Taeyang looked at Princess Hana, who watched him with hopeful eyes. He thought about his sister back on Earth, about the money he sent home, about his simple life. He thought about how none of that seemed to matter anymore. I accept. Queen Era smiled, and it transformed her face. For just a moment, she looked almost human. Then welcome to House Era, Taeyang. You are ours now, and we do not abandon our own. The Royal Guard training complex was a monument to Viridian perfection. Every surface gleamed. Every weapon was calibrated to microscopic precision. Every guard moved with the fluid efficiency of a machine. When Taeyang walked onto the training floor for the first time, every eye turned to him. The human, the primitive, the one who had somehow earned a place among them. Commander Byung-ho, the head of the Royal Guard, regarded him with barely concealed skepticism. He was a veteran of 3 centuries, his body enhanced with the finest military-grade cybernetics the Empire could provide. His neural processor could calculate trajectories faster than any computer. His reflexes were beyond human comprehension. You will learn our ways, Byung-ho said coldly. Your lucky moment during the attack does not make you one of us. Taeyang said nothing. He had dealt with hostile superiors before. Words would not change minds. Only actions mattered. The training began simply enough. Combat simulations, weapon drills, tactical scenarios. Taeyang struggled at first. The Viridian weapons felt wrong in his hands, too light and too responsive. The combat styles relied on perfect timing and calculated precision. Everything was choreographed, predictable, and efficient. But it was also rigid. During one simulation, Taeyang faced off against 3 opponents. The scenario was meant to teach defensive positioning. He was supposed to retreat to a designated safe zone and hold it. Instead, he grabbed a training shield, threw it at the first opponent to break their formation, then charged forward with his sidearm and took all 3 down in close combat. The simulation ended with red lights flashing. Failure. You did not follow protocol, Byung-ho said, his voice sharp with disapproval. I won, Taeyang replied. You improvised. Improvisation introduces variables. Variables lead to mistakes. Improvisation also introduces surprise. The enemy cannot counter what they do not expect. The two stared at each other. Around them, the other guards watched in silence. No one challenged the commander. No one. Then, from the observation deck above, a slow clap echoed through the training hall. Princess Hana stood there, smiling. Beside her, Queen Era watched with interest. Run the simulation again, the Queen commanded. This time, the opponents may also improvise. The guards looked uncertain. Improvisation was not part of their training, but they obeyed. The simulation started again. This time, when Taeyang threw the shield, his opponents scattered in unexpected directions. When he charged, they adapted their formation. The fight lasted longer, became messier, but Taeyang still won. Barely. Breathing hard, he looked up at the Queen. She nodded once, a gesture of approval. Over the following weeks, something changed. The guards began to watch Taeyang more carefully. They asked questions about human combat techniques. He showed them how to read body language, how to sense when an opponent was about to strike, not through computer analysis, but through instinct. He taught them to embrace chaos instead of fearing it. Byung-ho remained skeptical, but even he could not deny the results. The guards became more adaptable, more unpredictable, more dangerous. Princess Hana joined the training sessions. She wanted to learn self-defense, she said, so she would never be helpless again. Tae Yang taught her carefully, patiently, not the elegant Viridian techniques, but simple, brutal human methods. How to strike vulnerable points, how to use an opponent's size against them, how to survive when everything else failed. Technology can fail, he told her during one session. Your armor can break. Your weapons can run out of power. But your spirit, your will to survive, that never fails unless you let it. She absorbed every lesson with fierce determination. Sometimes the queen watched from above, her expression unreadable. Then came the state ceremony. Every noble house in the empire gathered to celebrate the anniversary of the founding. It was a grand affair, held in a massive hall that could hold thousands. Tae Yang stood beside Princess Hana, wearing formal armor that had been made specifically for him. It felt strange to be here, among beings who ruled planets and commanded fleets. The ceremony proceeded without incident for hours. Speeches, performances, displays of technology and art. Tai Yang remained alert, but everything seemed safe. Too safe. That was when he noticed it. A servant moving through the crowd. Nothing unusual about that. But the way he walked was wrong. Too stiff, too focused. Tai Yang had seen that walk before on men carrying bombs under their clothes. His hand moved to his weapon. "Something wrong?" Hana whispered beside him. "Stay close to me." The servant was moving toward the royal platform, where Queen Era stood with other rulers. Tae Yang pushed forward, ignoring the protests of guards. His human eyes, evolved to detect threats on ancient savannas, saw what the scanners missed, the servant's hand reaching into his robes, the slight bulge that did not belong. "Assassin!" Tae Yang shouted. Everything happened at once. The servant threw off his disguise and raised a weapon. Guards converged from all directions. The crowd screamed and scattered. Tae Yang was already moving, his body between the assassin and the royal platform. The weapon fired. Not a bullet or plasma bolt, but a cloud of microscopic needles. Each one carried a neurotoxin designed specifically to kill Viridians. The cloud spread wide, meant to take out everyone on the platform. Tai Yang threw himself in front of Queen Aira. The needles struck his armor, his exposed skin, his neck. Pain, like fire, spread through his veins. He fell to his knees but stayed upright, his body still shielding the queen as guards tackled the assassin. Then the world started spinning. The poison was not meant for humans, but it affected him anyway, differently. His heart hammered in his chest, his vision blurred. He could feel his body trying to process the toxin, struggling and failing. Hana screamed his name. Strong hands caught him as he collapsed. He looked up and saw Queen Era's face above him, her perfect composure finally shattered. She was afraid. "Get the medical team," she commanded. "Now!" Tae Yang tried to speak, to tell her he was fine, but his throat would not work. The poison burned through his system, attacking everything. He was vaguely aware of being carried, of frantic voices around him, but mostly he was aware of the queen's hands holding his, refusing to let go. "You will not die," she said fiercely. "I forbid it! Do you hear me, Tae Yang? You stood for my daughter twice. You stood for me. I will stand for you. This is my oath." Through the haze of pain, Tae Yang understood. She was not just a queen giving orders. She was bond-sworn making a promise. She would not let him fall. In the medical facility, doctors worked frantically. The toxin was designed for Viridian biology, and they did not know how it would affect a human. They tried different treatments, different antidotes, but nothing worked quickly enough. Queen Era refused to leave. She sat beside his bed as hours turned to days, holding vigil. The Empire watched in shock. Their empress, known for her cold logic and perfect control, was sitting at the bedside of a human guard, refusing to eat or sleep until he recovered. On the third day, Tae Yang's fever finally broke. He opened his eyes to find her still there, exhaustion written on her face. "You stayed," he whispered. "I gave my oath," she replied simply. "We do not abandon our own." Recovery came slowly this time. Tai Yang's body had fought off the poison, but it left him weak and tired. The doctors told him to rest, to take time to heal. But his mind would not rest. Something bothered him about the attacks. 2 attempts on the royal family in such a short time, both using methods specifically designed to bypass Viridian defenses. Someone inside had provided information. Someone with access to security protocols and royal schedules. He could not take his suspicions to Commander Byung-ho or the official security channels. If there was a traitor, they would be warned. He needed help from someone he could trust absolutely. He needed Princess Hana. She came to his recovery room when he called, concern written on her face. "You should be resting." "The doctors said, 'We have a traitor in the palace,'" Tae Yang interrupted. "Someone fed information to the assassins. Someone high-ranking." Hana's eyes widened. "That is a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" "Not yet, but I know how to find it. The assassins came from somewhere. They had help. If we can trace their movements, find where they entered the city, we might discover who hired them. The security forces are already investigating. And if the traitor is part of the security forces, they will bury the evidence." Tae Yang sat up, ignoring the protest from his healing body. "I need to investigate personally, but I am too recognizable now. Everyone knows the human guard. I need someone who can blend in, someone unexpected." Understanding dawned on her face. "You need me. I need someone the traitor will not suspect, someone who can move through the city without raising alarms." It was a risk. Princess Hana had never been outside the palace without a full security detail, but she surprised him by nodding immediately. "When do we start?" They planned carefully. Hana used her authority to dismiss her guards for a private meditation session. Tae Yang slipped out through service corridors he had mapped during his training. They met at an abandoned transport station on the palace grounds, both wearing simple clothes that would not attract attention. The Undercity was a revelation. Above ground, the Viridian capital was all crystal towers and perfect order. Below, in the ancient tunnels and forgotten spaces, life was messier, rougher, more real. Here lived the workers and outcasts, the ones who did not fit into perfect Viridian society. Tae Yang moved through this world with surprising ease. His human appearance, unusual but not threatening, drew curious looks but no hostility. Hana stayed close to him, her hood pulled up to hide her distinctive royal features. They followed leads purchased from information brokers. They tracked shipments of illegal weapons. They bribed dock workers and questioned smugglers. Slowly, carefully, they pieced together the trail. The assassins had entered the city through old maintenance tunnels. They had received their weapons from a warehouse owned by a shell company. And that company had ties to Duke Jae-won. Jae-won was one of the Queen's most trusted advisors. He commanded the loyalty of 3 noble houses and controlled vast industrial holdings. He was also ambitious, patient, and utterly ruthless. "It makes sense," Hana whispered, as they reviewed the evidence in a dingy cafe deep in the Undercity. "Jae-won has always believed my mother is too cautious. He wants to expand the empire through military conquest. She refuses. If I died, she would be blamed for failing to protect me. She would be forced to abdicate. Jae-won would take control of the council. We need to get this information to the Queen," Tae Yang said. But before they could move, the cafe door burst open. A dozen armed figures in black armor poured in. Not palace guards, private soldiers, Jae-won's personal troops. Tae Yang grabbed Hana and pulled her toward the back exit, but more soldiers blocked the way. They were surrounded. Did you truly think you could investigate me without being noticed? Duke Jae-won stepped through the front door, his elegant robes out of place in the grimy cafe. I have eyes everywhere, princess, including in your mother's palace. I knew the moment you left. My mother will destroy you for this, Hana said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Your mother will never know. You will both die in an unfortunate accident. The human guard, overcome with grief and failure, will be blamed for your death. The queen will be devastated. She will lose her will to rule. Jae-won smiled coldly. It is all very logical. The soldiers closed in. Tai Yang pushed Hana behind him, calculating odds and finding none in their favor. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped. But he would not give up. Humans never gave up. He fought like a cornered animal. His fists struck armor. His feet found weak points. He took down 3 soldiers before they overwhelmed him with sheer numbers. He felt weapons strike his head, his ribs, his back. Pain exploded through him, but he kept fighting, kept protecting Hana, until a shock weapon hit him directly. His muscles seized. He fell hard, unable to move. They dragged him and Hana to a facility hidden deep in the Undercity. An old industrial complex, long abandoned. Now it served as Jae-won's secret base. They threw Tae Yang into a chair and bound him with restraints designed to hold Viridian criminals. They were more than strong enough to hold a human. Hana was locked in a cage across the room, forced to watch. Now then, Jae-won said, circling Tai Yang like a predator. You will tell me everything about the Queen's security protocols. Where she sleeps, when she is vulnerable, how to bypass her personal guards. Go to hell, Tae Yang replied in English. Jae-won nodded to one of his soldiers. The man activated a pain device, and electricity coursed through Tae Yang's body. He gritted his teeth, refusing to scream. The soldier increased the power. Still, Tae Yang said nothing. This went on for hours. They tried different methods. Pain, drugs. A neural probe that tried to scan his memories. But human brains were different from Viridian ones. The probe could not make sense of his neural patterns. The drugs affected him differently than expected. And the pain, while terrible, could not break him. Humans had endured torture for thousands of years. They had developed a stubborn resistance to suffering. Logic said he should talk, should give up the information to make the pain stop. But humans did not always follow logic. Why do you resist? Jae-won demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. You gain nothing from this suffering. Tell me what I want to know. And it ends. Tae Yang raised his head, blood running down his face from a dozen cuts. She trusted me, he said simply. The Queen trusted me to protect her family. I will not fail her. Irrational. Completely irrational, Jae-won turned to Hana. Your pet human is broken. He chooses pain over sense. But Hana was not looking at Jae-won. She stared at Tai Yang with an expression of wonder and horror. She saw him broken and bleeding, held together only by will. She saw him enduring agony rather than betray her mother. She finally understood what humans meant by the word loyalty. He is not broken, she whispered. He is stronger than any of us. Jae-won raised his hand to strike Tae Yang again. Then alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Explosions rocked the walls. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the corridors. A soldier rushed in. My lord! The palace guard! The queen herself leads them! They found us! Jae-won's perfect composure finally cracked. Impossible! How? Tae Yang smiled through bloody teeth. Before leaving the palace, he had activated a tracker, one he always carried. He had known they might walk into a trap. He had wanted Jae-won to capture them. It was the only way to find his base and confirm his guilt. The door exploded inward. Queen Aros strode through the smoke and fire, her crown blazing with light, her personal weapon in her hands. Behind her, an army of royal guards poured into the facility. She saw Taiyang bound and bleeding, saw her daughter caged, and her eyes turned to ice. "Jae-won," she said quietly, "by ancient law I challenge you to single combat. Face me now or die as a coward." The facility fell silent. Every soldier, every guard, every witness froze. A challenge under ancient law could not be refused without losing all honor. Jae-won's face twisted with rage, but he drew his weapon and stepped forward. "You have grown soft, Ara," he said. "Too much time on the throne has made you weak. You should have expanded the empire when you had the chance. Now I will take it from you." "You will try," the queen replied. They circled each other in the center of the room. Jae-won was younger, enhanced with illegal military augmentations. He was faster than any normal Viridian, stronger, more dangerous. The queen was older, but she had ruled for 3 centuries through cunning and skill. She had fought in the last wars before peace came to the empire. Jae-won struck first, his blade moving almost too fast to see. The queen parried and countered, her movements precise and efficient. They fought with the elegant brutality of Viridian combat, each strike calculated to exploit weakness, each defense perfectly timed. But Tae-yang saw something others might miss. Jae-won fought with anger. The queen fought with purpose. The duel raged for long minutes. Neither could gain advantage. Then Jae-won made a mistake. He grew impatient and overextended. The queen's blade slashed across his arm, drawing first blood. By ancient law, the duel could end here if Jae-won yielded. He did not yield. Instead, he gestured sharply. His soldiers raised their weapons, pointing them at the queen's back, breaking the sacred rules of single combat, attacking dishonorably. "Now!" Jae-won commanded. Tae-yang did not think. Despite his restraints, despite his injuries, despite every logical reason to stay still, he threw his entire body weight against the chair. It toppled sideways. The restraints, designed for Viridian prisoners, had one weakness. They assumed the prisoner would act rationally, would not risk further injury. Tae-yang was human. He did not care about rational. He dislocated his thumb, making his hand small enough to slip free. Pain screamed through him, but he used it, channeled it into movement. He rolled across the floor, grabbed a fallen weapon, and fired at the soldiers, aiming at the queen. 3 went down before they could pull their triggers. The others turned toward him, giving the queen precious seconds. She moved like lightning, her blade finding Jae-won's throat before he could react. But Jae-won had one more trick. A hidden weapon in his armor activated, firing a lethal blast directly at the queen's chest. Tae-yang threw himself forward. Again, always. The blast hit him in the side, burning through flesh and cracking ribs. He crashed into the queen, knocking her aside. They fell together, Tae-yang's body taking the worst of the impact. This time, he did not get up, but the queen did. She rose like a storm, her fury terrible to behold. Her blade found Jae-won's heart in one perfect strike. The traitor fell, his expression frozen in surprise. Then she turned, and her anger became fear. She dropped to her knees beside Tae-yang, her hands hovering over his broken body, afraid to touch him and cause more pain. "No," she whispered. "No. You cannot do this again. You cannot keep falling for us." Tae-yang tried to smile, but blood filled his mouth. "Bond sworn," he managed to say. "Protect family. You foolish human." Tears, actual tears, ran down her face. "You beautiful, foolish human. You have fallen twice for me. I swore you would never fall alone. I swore it." Princess Hana broke free from her cage and rushed to them. Royal guards surrounded them, weapons raised against any remaining threats. Medical teams poured into the facility, but everyone could see the truth. The blast had done terrible damage. Even Viridian technology had limits. "I am dying," Tae-yang said, stating the obvious. "No." Queen Ara's voice carried absolute authority. "I forbid it. I am your queen, and I forbid you to die. Do you hear me?" Despite everything, Tae-yang laughed. It hurt, and blood came up, but he laughed. Only the Queen would try to command death itself. The medical team leader approached hesitantly. "Your Majesty, we need to move him immediately. There is a procedure. Experimental. We could try to—" "Do it," the Queen commanded. "Use every resource of the Empire. I want him alive." They lifted Tae-yang carefully onto a medical platform that began treating him immediately. The Queen held his hand the entire time, even as they rushed him to the transport, even as they flew at maximum speed back to the palace, even as they carried him into the most advanced medical facility in the Empire. She had made an oath. She would not let him fall alone. The procedure took 18 hours. They rebuilt his damaged organs using artificial replacements. They repaired bones and regrew tissue. They gave him blood synthesized specifically for human biology. At one point, his heart stopped entirely, and the Queen, standing in the observation room, screamed at the doctors to bring him back. They did. When Tae-yang finally opened his eyes, 3 days later, he found himself in a hospital room, but not alone. Never alone. Queen Ara sat in a chair beside his bed, her hand holding his. She had not left, had not slept, had not ruled her empire. She had simply stayed, as she had promised. "You are awake," she said, relief flooding her voice. "Still alive," he confirmed. "Yes, and you will stay that way. I have made arrangements. You will never return to active duty. You will never put yourself in danger again." "I cannot just stop being a guard." "You will not be a guard." She stood, and despite her exhaustion, she was every inch the Empress. "You will be commander of the Royal Guard. You will train them, lead them, but you will not be the one to stand in front of weapons. That part of your life is over." "The guards will not follow a human commander. They will follow the one who taught them to be more than machines. They will follow the one who showed them what true loyalty means." She squeezed his hand. "And if they do not, I will make them. You are mine, Tae-yang of Earth. Mine to protect, mine to honor. I will not watch you fall again." The door opened, and Princess Hana entered. She had been waiting outside, giving her mother time alone with him. She looked at Tae-yang with eyes full of emotion he could not quite name. "You endured torture rather than betray us," she said softly. "You threw yourself in front of death 3 times. Why?" Tae-yang thought about his answer carefully. "Where I come from, we have a saying. Family is not just blood. It is who you would bleed for. You are my family now, all of you." Queen Ara lifted his hand and pressed it to her forehead in a viridian gesture of deepest respect. "And you are ours, now and forever." The days that followed were a whirlwind. News of Jae-won's betrayal and death spread through the empire. The noble houses that had supported him were dismantled. New alliances formed, and through it all, Queen Ara made her declaration public. In a ceremony broadcast across the empire, she formally adopted Tae-yang into the royal house. Not as a servant, not as a guard, as family. She gave him a title and lands. She gave him a place at her side in the council chambers, and she made clear to all the empire that he was under her direct protection. "He has fallen for us 3 times, she announced to her people. "He stood when others could not. He protected when others failed. And he showed us something we had forgotten. The strength of sacrifice, the power of loyalty. These things cannot be calculated or programmed. They must be chosen. Tae-yang chose to protect us, even at the cost of his own life. Therefore, I choose to honor him with every resource of this empire. He will never fall alone. This is my oath as Empress." The Viridian people, raised on logic and reason, struggled to understand. But they saw their queen, their perfect and cold ruler, standing beside a scarred human with tears in her eyes. They saw Princess Hana, who looked at Tae-yang with something beyond gratitude. They saw the royal guards who saluted their new commander with genuine respect. And slowly, they began to understand. Earth sent delegations. Queen Ira met with them personally and proposed a formal alliance. She wanted to recruit more humans for specialized roles in the Empire. Not as servants or soldiers, but as advisors, teachers, friends. She wanted her people to learn what humans could teach them about heart, about courage, about the strength found in choosing others over yourself. Tai-yang stood at her side during these meetings, still recovering but growing stronger. He taught classes at the Guard Academy. He advised on security protocols. And sometimes, in quiet moments, he simply sat in the palace gardens with Hana and her mother, sharing stories about Earth and humanity. "Do all humans possess this quality?" the Queen asked him once. "This willingness to sacrifice?" "Not all," Tae-yang admitted. "But enough. We are not perfect. We are not logical. But we try to be good. We try to protect those who cannot protect themselves. It is what makes us human." "Then humanity has value beyond measure," she said. "And you, Tai-yang, are the finest example of your species." He smiled. "I am just a soldier who did his job." "No." Princess Hana shook her head. "You are family who chose to stand when you could have run. You are bond-sworn who honored his oath. You are the one who taught an empire how to feel again." And in the purple sky above the crystal towers, the sun set on a new era. An era where humans and Viridians stood together, where logic met emotion and made both stronger, where a simple guard from Earth had changed the fate of an empire by doing what humans did best. He chose to protect. He chose to sacrifice. He chose not to fall alone. And an empress, moved by his example, chose never to let him.